Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. I didn't choose the place because it was beautiful. I chose it because it was cheap. It was one of those older Airbnb listings with no reviews yet, some cottage tucked away in the woods of rural Vermont. The pictures looked decent. Small kitchen, creaky staircase, rustic bedroom, and a guest book on the nightstand that seemed kind of charming in a "your grandma used to live here" way. I arrived just after sunset. The key was under a crooked garden gnome, exactly where the host, Deb, said it would be. No check-in instructions, no house rules, just a single message. Please sign the guest book before midnight. It's tradition. I thought it was cute. Old-fashioned, maybe a little obsessive, but whatever. I tossed my duffel bag on the couch, microwaved some leftover road trip pizza, and walked around the place. It was colder inside than out. The kind of cold that wasn't just about temperature, like it was holding its breath. I chalked it up to the age of the house. No insulation, maybe. The walls had a weird dampness to them. No mold, just that wet smell, like forgotten laundry. The guest book sat open on the nightstand in the bedroom. The first page was dated October 1986. That alone should have been a red flag. Airbnb didn't even exist back then. But I was tired and didn't think much of it. Page after page, there were short, weirdly worded entries. Thank you for the warmth. The house accepts us again. We left nothing behind, just as agreed. Some were crossed out with red pen. A few were torn out completely. I flipped to the latest one. It was dated the day before I arrived, but that wasn't what made me freeze. It had my name, written in my handwriting. Arrived late, cold inside, but quiet. Might stay longer. I stared at it for a long time, trying to understand if this was some sort of prank. Maybe the host copied it from my profile. But it didn't make sense. The entry wasn't written in present tense. It was like I had already stayed here. My hands were shaking now. I shut the book. And behind me, I swear to God, I heard the pages start turning on their own. I turned. The book was open again, and the words were changing. Fresh ink, still glistening. You forgot to sign. Now, it won't let you leave. I slammed the book shut, but no matter how many times I closed it, walked away, or even left the room entirely, when I returned, it was open, and the words were always different. The last one read, "You belong to the page now." I threw it across the room. It hit the wall with a dull thud and slid under the bed. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every creak of the old wood sounded deliberate, like someone was walking around in circles just outside the door. When I finally gathered the nerve to open it, the hallway was empty, but the book was back on the nightstand. I don't remember falling asleep. I only remember waking up to my own scream. The room had changed, or maybe the house had. The walls seemed farther apart. The door wasn't where it had been, and the guest book, still there, had dozens of new entries, all dated for today, all with my name, all in different handwriting. Woke up in a different place. The pages keep multiplying. I don't know what version of me is writing this. I stumbled into the hallway, but the front door was gone, in its place. A bookshelf, full of more guest books, thousands, some worn, some fresh, all labeled with my name on the spine. The cottage wasn't just a house. It was a trap. I tried breaking windows. They showed me reflections, but not mine. The versions of me staring back were older, some thinner. One of them had no eyes. They didn't mimic me. They just watched. Eventually, I found the kitchen again. There was only one note pinned to the fridge, scrawled on the back of a receipt. The only way out is to finish the story. I returned to the guest book. My hands didn't want to write, but something else guided them, like I was watching from behind my own eyes. I wrote one sentence. I am ready to leave. And then I woke up, back in my car, parked on a gravel road, engine running, GPS blinking like I'd never left. But the strangest part, on my passenger seat sat the guest book, just one page, blank, and waiting. It was supposed to be a quiet escape from everything. I'd spent months in the city grinding out 70-hour weeks, and I needed a reset. My therapist suggested solitude, so I booked a small Airbnb in a remote stretch of Oregon. Wooded hills, no neighbors for miles, and a gorgeous A-frame cabin tucked between pine trees. The listing had hundreds of glowing reviews. People wrote things like spiritual peace, the silence is healing, and I didn't want to leave. Neither would I, at first. The host, a woman named June, messaged right away. She sent a code for the door, a warning about spotty Wi-Fi, and one last line I didn't notice until after I arrived. Please do not acknowledge anyone you see outside the house at night, even if they call you by name. I thought it was a joke. You know, cabin in the woods horror humor. When I arrived just before dusk, the place looked perfect. Freshly shoveled path, firewood stacked neatly, and a heavy warmth that wrapped around me as soon as I stepped inside. But I noticed something off almost immediately. There were no mirrors, not in the bathroom, not in the hallway, not even on the closet doors. I chalked it up to design choice and moved on. Built a fire, made tea, started a book. Around 10 p.m., I heard the first knock. 3 slow raps, not at the door though, on the window. The cabin had big glass panes facing the woods, but outside was pitch black, no porch light, no moon. When I walked over, there was nothing, just trees and more trees. Still, something about the knock. It sounded low, like it had come from child height. A few minutes later, another knock, this time from the back of the house. I grabbed my phone. No service. I tried to laugh it off. Raccoons, maybe. But the next sound wasn't a knock. It was my voice, from outside, calling in a slow, muffled tone. "Hey, it's me. Let me in." I froze. I stood in the center of that cabin, hearing a version of myself calling to me from just beyond the glass. Same voice, same cadence, just off, like someone had studied me and almost got it right. I didn't move, didn't speak. After a minute, it stopped. I sat up the rest of the night, watching the windows. Nothing more happened until sunrise. And then, just before dawn, I got another message from June. "Good. You didn't answer. Most guests don't make it past the first night." I didn't sleep. When the sun finally cracked over the horizon, I packed my bag, grabbed the keys, and started for the door. But something told me to check my phone again. The signal had returned, and so had the reviews on the Airbnb listing, except they weren't the same anymore. The glowing 5-star comments were gone, replaced by a dozen disturbing posts, all from accounts with no profile photos, all left within the last 24 hours. It copies you. If you hear yourself outside, do not look. The longer you stay, the better it becomes at pretending. I made it to day 3. Don't make the same mistake. June isn't the host. She's the last guest. That last one hit me hardest. I reread it, feeling something twist in my gut. Then I saw the most recent message pop up at the top. "You already let it in." The firewood crackled behind me. Except, I hadn't lit a fire that morning. I turned around slowly. The fireplace was roaring now, and sitting in front of it, with its back to me, was me. Same clothes, same posture, same hairline I hated. It sat in complete stillness, warming its hands in front of the flames as if it belonged here more than I did. Then, without turning, it spoke. "You should have never looked at the window." I backed away. The door behind me slammed shut on its own. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a coat rack, and hurled it toward the imposter. It shattered through its chest. There was no blood. Just silence. It stood up anyway. When it turned to face me, its smile was stretched just a little too wide. Its eyes were mine, but hollow, like someone had worn them too long. I ran. Outside, the woods didn't look the same. The path was gone. The trees were different. older, gnarled, like they had grown overnight. I didn't stop, not until I reached a dirt road and flagged down a lone logging truck heading south. The driver didn't ask questions. I think he saw the look in my face and decided he didn't want to know. I reported the listing to Airbnb. A week later, the entire profile disappeared. No trace of June, no record of my stay, and my review. Do not stay here. Never posted. But the worst part? Every few nights since, I hear knocking. Not at my front door, at the bedroom window, and when I look, there's nothing there. Except my reflection, grinning back at me from the wrong side of the glass. I should have trusted my gut when I saw the house. It was a last-minute trip, and everything in town was booked except this one Airbnb listed as the winter rest cabin. The photos showed a cozy A-frame nestled deep in the woods just outside a small Alaskan town. The reviews were all vague, generic words like quiet, peaceful, good heating. No pictures from guests, no detailed feedback, just a string of 5-star ratings that felt off. Still, the price was low, the location was remote like I wanted, and I figured I could use the solitude to unwind. I drove in just after sunset, the light fading fast behind the mountains. The snow crunched under my tires as I pulled down the narrow, ice-rimmed lane leading to the cabin. There it was, a black silhouette against the white, leaning ever so slightly to the right. The porch light flickered like it wasn't sure if it wanted to stay on. The carport was empty. No welcome note, no key lockbox, just a door, wide open. I stood there for a moment, headlights pointed toward the entrance, snowflakes drifting lazily through the beam. Something about it made my skin crawl. It didn't look abandoned. It looked like someone was already inside. I called the host, straight to voicemail. Maybe it was the cold. Maybe it was exhaustion. But I convinced myself that maybe the cleaner had left the door ajar. I stepped in. The air inside was freezing, colder than it should have been, even for Alaska. There were no lights on, just the glow from my phone. I found the breaker box in the kitchen and flipped the switches. The lights flickered, then stabilized. The living room was rustic, staged just like the photos, but it felt different, like someone had moved things an inch or two from where they were supposed to be. There was one thing that wasn't in the listing photos, a large framed mirror on the far wall of the hallway. It was old, its frame warped with moisture, and it faced directly down the hallway toward the bedroom doors. I don't know how long I stared at it before I noticed something, a faint handprint in the bottom corner, on the inside of the glass. I should have left right then, but instead I dropped my bags, locked the door, and told myself I was imagining things. I needed sleep. The first time I heard the footsteps upstairs, I thought it was the wood settling. The second time, the footsteps stopped directly above me. I was sitting on the couch. There was no second floor. I sat frozen on the couch, staring up at the ceiling where the footsteps had just stopped. There was no second floor, no loft, no attic, just rafters above insulated drywall. And yet those steps, they were deliberate, measured, like someone was trying not to be heard, but failing. I got up slowly, phone light in hand, and scanned the room. Everything was still, no breeze, no shifting shadows, but the mirror in the hallway was fogged, not fully, just a patch, oval-shaped, like someone had breathed on it. I don't know why I walked toward it. Some mix of fear and disbelief, the kind of reaction where your body moves before your brain approves. As I neared the glass, something caught my eye. Behind my reflection, just over my left shoulder, was a figure, barely visible, not standing, hunched, like it had just unfolded itself from inside the wall. I turned instantly. Nothing. I looked back at the mirror. Now there were 2 handprints, higher up, as if someone had pressed their palms to the inside of the glass and slowly dragged them down. I backed away and bolted for the front door. Locked. I know I locked it. But now the bolt was turned and stuck, like it had been jammed from the outside. I yanked and twisted, heart pounding in my throat. Behind me, floorboards creaked. Slow, steady, closer. I didn't look back. I ran to the bedroom and slammed the door. It didn't have a lock, just an old latch that looked like it hadn't worked since the 1980s. I pushed a dresser against it for good measure, and then silence. Not peaceful silence, the kind that feels held together by breath you can't see. I stayed up all night, sitting in the corner of the room with my phone camera facing the door, waiting to hear anything, see anything. At some point, I must have passed out, because I woke to daylight, bright and sharp, and the mirror, gone. The hallway wall where it had hung was now blank, not even a nail or a mark left behind. I didn't wait for answers. I grabbed my stuff, climbed out the bedroom window, and drove straight back into town. I tried calling the host again. No number. Listing removed. Even the cabin's address wouldn't show on GPS anymore, like the place never existed. But the pictures on my phone tell a different story, because in the last photo I took, just before I ran, the mirror is still there. And in the reflection, I'm not alone.